What's up, everyone, and welcome to Be Sacred Space, your place for endless growth. I am the creator of this beautiful and special space. My name is Bianca, but you can call me B, and I'm here to help you master yourself and your reality. If that is something you can vibe with, make sure you comment and subscribe. It would help this channel out so much, and it would mean a lot to me. Plus, I have some really great videos in the works for you all, so you don't want to miss out. Now, before we get into this video, I recommend that you grab some paper and pen as this video is jam-packed with a lot of gems. And this way, you can reflect on your notes whenever you want to. So, let us get into the topic of today. Today is all about nurturing our mental self. This series is a part of the Empower Your Wellbeing. So, the mental aspect of ourself includes our mind, our thoughts, our beliefs, and our mindsets. It's important for us to nurture the mental aspect of ourselves in order to keep our mental health in check and to experience life ideally. Just as we take the time to care for our physical body, we must also make the effort to take care of our minds, which starts with understanding what the mental self is and how it functions, which is a vast topic that we can't possibly cover all in this video. But I will be doing another video shortly after this one is released on recommendations such as whose work to look into, as well as some books that I recommend and suggest you reading in order to comprehend the power and the magnificence of our mind. So, if you haven't already, subscribe so you don't miss out on that informative video. And while you're at it, please give this video a thumbs up. It would really help this channel get out to those who could really benefit from this empowering and truly transformational self-care series. Plus, I would greatly appreciate your support as a viewer. Likes are always free and it only takes a moment of your time. Now, back to the video. When we don't prioritize our mental self-care, we may experience more stress in our lives, feel overstimulated. We increase our chances of developing mental health issues, and we can get in a mental funk that can be hard to get out of. The best remedy and preventative maintenance we can do is have a healthy mental self-care, which again starts with understanding the workings of our mind. Did you know our mindsets and beliefs are key to how we experience our reality, and that our beliefs and thoughts materialize into the physical plane of existence? Did you also know that on average it is said that 75 to 80% of our thoughts are generally negative and about 95% of our thoughts are repetitive? Makes you wonder if majority of our thoughts are said to be negative and repetitive, and if our thoughts in fact create our experience, then the results of that wouldn't look pleasant in one's life. I mean, what kind of outcome could we expect to unfold within our own lives and experience if we are plagued by repetitive and negative thoughts? When we don't correct these negative thought patterns, then they form into beliefs and become a part of who we identify as and what we experience. We become more susceptible to stress, anxiety, depression, unfavorable circumstances, increase in escapism, and codependent relationships. Rather, this is with another person, a substance, or a habit. Either way, it becomes toxic to the individual and the others involved. Now, if this is what you want out of life, then these Empower Your Wellbeing videos might not be for you. But if you want to live a more harmonious, fulfilling, and thriving life, you're going to have to commit to a regular self-care practice for your mental self. And that starts with observing and being honest with what your thoughts and beliefs show you. This will help you become aware of your toxic beliefs and thoughts and help give you the starting point to replacing these with more beneficial thoughts and beliefs. But some of our beliefs and thoughts and patterns may be hazardous to us and others, but because it's been normalized and accepted as true throughout our lives, then we may just not be aware of them. And that is why a regular practice of incorporating the true inner work is important. This allows us to be the source of our reality. Now we're going to take a look at how poor mental self-care can manifest. It can manifest as repetitive thinking and poor inner talk, which if left unchecked will become a deadly poison to the mind and keep us in a low state of consciousness, which usually involves fear, guilt, shame, and lack of clear thinking. This can also manifest as low self-esteem, over defensiveness, and the development of apathy, making it easy to not be able to see ourselves as good enough or capable of change or anything better for ourselves or others. It's almost like we give up the will to be better and do better. And because of this repetitiveness of the thoughts, then they harden into belief, materializing in the individual's experience, and then the individual can take on a victim-like mentality, which ultimately makes them a victim to their own experiences. And the cycle continues and repeat, which is never a good place to be in, ever. The next sign of poor mental self-care can look like someone who has a pessimistic outlook on life. This individual sees the world and their experience as negative, bad, something to fear, and may even develop the belief that human nature is inherently bad. This kind of thinking tends to stem from the individual's environment throughout their lives. And when these harden into beliefs, it can make it hard for the individual to see the good that's around them or to have the will to create the necessary changes in order to experience a more pleasant side of life. This can lead to feelings of hopelessness or despair. It increases the chance of developing mental health issues, high levels of stress, and when we are dealing with mental health issues and stress, it can be very crippling. And another sign of poor mental self-care is an individual may seek means of escapism. Individuals become desperate for an escape to numb and silence the thoughts and beliefs that flood the mind. So we may overindulge in things, habits, substances that have, harmful effects on our body, mind, emotion, experience. No, sorry, I meant in spirit. Now, escapism comes in many forms, though a lot of people tend to think addiction and escapism is only in substances like alcohol, drugs, and plant and fungi medicine. But it's so much more than that. Escapism can look like codependent relationships or jumping from one relationship to another right after each other. Nonstop screen time, from endless scrolling to watching videos, TV shows, to sex, porn addiction, overly working, and like physical harm. No matter what the distraction is, it keeps the individuals from coming face to face with themselves and their problems. Now, the last sign of poor mental self-care is limiting beliefs that have no grounds in truth. This can look like limiting beliefs around self, circumstances, and reality in general. These are the thoughts that we repeatedly say to ourselves that keep us stuck in the same ways of being and blocking us from growing. This can look like, I've always been this way, things have always been done this way, I'm not good enough, I'm not good at such and such and such, that's not possible, it's always me, and so much. And so much more. When we keep repeating these statements to ourselves without correcting them, then they solidify into beliefs and then becomes normalized for us, which if that's your thing, go ahead, do you, boo-boo. But if you're looking to elevate your mindset and change your experience and create change within your lives, then we have to start taking a conscious effort to challenging our beliefs and our thoughts and keeping a healthy practice of mental self-care, which we will discuss here shortly. But this way, we can ensure that we experience peace, happiness, joy, and freedom in many forms. An important thing that I want to note is that poor mental self-care can also lead us to being easily manipulated and influenced by others. Unfortunately, there are others who are out there who exist that don't have our highest good in mind and look to prey on those who can be easily influenced or manipulated. Now, having a regular practice in strengthening our mental self will help protect us against those who do not have our highest interests in mind. Now, let us talk about stress and the mental self. Stress is a response to events or situations that are perceived as challenging or threatening, and it activates the body's flight, or freeze mode. This triggers the release of adrenaline and cortisol, which is a stress hormone. While in short term can be helpful in some situations, but chronic or excessive stress, which I call functioning stress disorder, can lead to a negative effect on the physical, mental, and emotional health. Negative effects can include, but are not limited to, compromised immune systems, increased in anxiety, depression, poor concentration, poor decision making, unable to process information clearly, and disruption in our sleeping patterns. Now, what happens when our life is in a constant mode of stress? It eventually becomes normalized and develops into functioning stress disorder, which is a term I like to think that I have coined on my own. Maybe it's a real term, maybe it's not, but it's what I've been calling it. Functioning stress disorder is simply when we have adapted in a we normalize being highly stressed. And stress can come from anywhere, from our jobs, the constant to-do lists and responsibilities, our relationships, from our family and our children, to moving, to financial stress, to what's going on in the world with the wars, our traumas, our thoughts, and everything in between. When we are dealing with this on a consistent basis, then this does great damage to our mental capacity and capabilities. It tanks our mental health and our confidence and creates opportunity for disease and illness and disharmony in our relationships. The amount of stress the average person experiences is absolutely ridiculous and needs some serious reevaluations and adjustments. When we are stressed, it can be hard for us to cope with everyday life, to see the bigger picture of everything and be able to determine any solutions and act accordingly. In my opinion, it is one of the biggest challenges that humanity face. Next to would be the increase in mental health issues. We are currently facing what is now considered a crisis in mental health. In recent studies, it shows that an average of 33% of children are reported to have anxiety, depression, or other mental health issues. On an average of 33% of adults are reported to have anxiety, depression, or other mental health issues as well. But these are just the reported cases. I believe the number for children and adults is much higher. What's alarming is that 74% of people have been reported to be dealing with stress that's too overwhelming to cope with. And 90% of Americans believe we are dealing with a mental health crisis. So a lot of people are recognizing the noticeable decline in mental health. With the decline in mental health and the increased levels of stress, this can make it hard to properly cope with life, to find meaning and purpose, and to see the possibilities and make correct decisions. Poor mental health can also cause unnecessary suffering, irrational choices, and keep us in a state of fear and anxiety along with other negative effects. In order for us to prioritize and improve our mental health and reduce the stress levels in our lives, we need to adapt a practice that nourishes our mental self. So, let us discuss about how we can go about doing that in order to improve and upgrade our mental self-care. The first step is always to gain an understanding, an understanding, and an overstanding of the mind and how the mind functions. Let's get this straight. The mental aspect of self is a vast topic, which I don't think we can even comprehend the entirety of the functions of our mind at this current state. So it is my intention that I can at least leave you guys with a good starting point to get you started on a journey to rediscovering the power that lies within your mind. We will cover more about this later in the video. For now, I would like to continue to discuss ways we can improve our mental self. And the next tip that I would like to mention is observing our inner talk, the inner conversations that go on in our minds. Now, this is done by reviewing what our thoughts are saying and what they're telling us about our relationships to ourselves, our relationships to others, and our experiences. Do our thoughts support us and help us grow, or do they harm and sabotage us? Getting to know our thoughts and our inner talk is done through a practice of observing our thoughts frequently. We observe them in times of stressful situations, different circumstances in our lives. Observing your thoughts in all aspects. This can, look like, observing your thoughts when you're feeling angry, when you are around your friends and family, your thoughts around work and career, and so on. By doing this, this will tell us a lot about ourselves and our mindsets. In order for this practice to be the most effective and beneficial, one must be completely honest with ourselves and what we observe and discover. Only then can we take the necessary steps to improve our mental self, our mental health, and our experiences. Once we've learned to observe our inner talk, we will now start to see the kind of beliefs and mindsets we have and what we may want to discard and replace. It is often that our beliefs are not our own, but the beliefs that are given to us by our parents, environment, peers, and social influences. A lot of these beliefs are outdated, harmful, and simply have no real footing in truth. But if we aren't accustomed to frequent self-reflection, being honest with ourselves, accepting trustful feedback, and taking the time to contemplate, then most likely we are unaware of these thoughts and mindsets that we hold. And if we leave our mindsets and beliefs unchecked, then we are giving up our self-responsibility and neglecting a major aspect of ourselves and our lives. And by neglecting and refusing to take the time and action to support the mental aspect of ourselves, we willfully give up rulership over our mind and our domain. And we simply cannot become or even consider ourselves mature adults. And if we don't have ownership over our mind, then who does? Now, this can be a very hard concept to grasp, but this is dangerous because the sad truth is that majority of individuals are walking around with no real self-accountability and rulership over their own minds. And this is the very problem that has held humanity down in mental shackles for a very long time. But that doesn't have to be the case for long, because once we understand how the mind functions, then we gain the knowledge that will help support our mental self. We then take that knowledge and apply it so that we can gain our personal power and take back control of all aspects of our lives. This is why we must become active and support our mind and become diligent when it comes to our mindsets. We can do this by having a healthy mental diet, which consists of observing, rejecting, and replacing and enforcing. Mental diet is a term given to what we consume and allow within our minds. Our minds are always taking in information from our inner world, which are our thoughts, our beliefs, our physical and emotional state, as well as our outer experiences. The music we listen to, what others say to us, what they don't say to us, our physical and emotional experiences, what we see driving down the street. Our mind is always taking in information, even if we are unaware of it. This is why a frequent practice of self-reflection and contemplation is needed. Without this practice, our minds can take in bits of information that are harmful or outdated and make it rooted in our mindsets and our beliefs. Now, if you are being mindful and consuming things that serve and benefit your overall well-being, this will have an uplifting effect within your thoughts and different aspects of your life. But if you're not being mindful and you're consuming information that is destructive and contradicting to what you say you want, then this will cause a shift in your experiences related to the information you consume. You can think of it like this. Mental diet is What you put in is what you get out. So if you put good stuff in, you will get good stuff out. Now, if you put junk in, you will get junk out. We will discuss more on how this is possible shortly, but for now, the idea is to start by observing your thoughts. I suggest finding a meditative practice that resonates with you. Now, this could look like walking, going on hikes, traditional sitting meditations. Hula hooping for me can be a meditative practice. The thing is you want to find something that you enjoy where you can be with yourself with limited to no distractions. Once you can do this, you won't necessarily always need to be in a meditative practice to be able to observe your thoughts. This is just a great stepping stone to get you there. Now, once you're able to sit with yourself, I suggest doing your best to ground and center yourself, especially if you're an overthinker like me, or you had a busy day, or it's just been very demanding. So this can look like taking a few conscious breaths. For me, I personally recommend the alternative nostril breathing technique. I usually do 4 to 6 good reps. If I find that I let my thoughts take my focus away, I start over. This breathing treatment will help you ground, bring the right and left brain into balance, as well as help you think and process clearly. So this is simply done by using your dominant hand, and you want to hold your hand like this. And so you will start with plugging your nostril with your thumb, and then inhaling through the open nostrils. And so I do it for 4 counts. And then once you have inhaled, you switch. So you take your ring finger and you place it on your nostrils, and you let go of your thumb. And then you exhale out that nostril, and then you inhale through the open nostrils, and then you put the thumb back on the nostrils and let go of the other finger and exhale through that. Like I said, I like to do that about 4 to 6 times. If I find that I have gotten distracted, I will start all over from number 1. After that, take time to either let your thoughts wander, or you can bring up something that you would like to observe and contemplate, such as maybe you had a situation happen at work that triggered you, or maybe someone said something to you that you didn't agree with, or whatever. You're just going to let these thoughts come up naturally. Observe what your thoughts are like and write them down if you can, either on paper or in your notes on your phone. And you can ask yourself some of the following questions. What are the feelings that are coming up? Are there any repetitive thoughts that keep circling in your mind? Does your thoughts make you feel empowered and encouraged? Or does your thoughts make you feel weak and incapable? Are you a worrier? Or do you overthink? Are you overly critical of yourself and others? Do you put blame on others? What are the underlying emotions behind these thoughts? Are there any truths? Or is it a distortedness within these thoughts and feelings? You want to really take the time to examine these thoughts and try to look at them through different perspectives. And if you find that your thoughts are negative, stop to see where these thoughts may stem from and their triggers. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to relive the circumstances, the experience, or the memory, but having an ideal reference of where these thoughts stem from will help you be able to transmute these embedded memories, thoughts, and patterns so that they are no longer your dominant thoughts and patterns and beliefs. Next, you'll want to replace these thoughts with new thoughts, rejecting any of the old thoughts and patterns that do not serve and empower you. And you'll want to keep enforcing these new thoughts until they become concrete. This process has no time limit. The results really depends on you, your efforts, and how embedded and interconnected these thoughts and beliefs are. I'll give you an example how to do this. Let's say I had a bad day and I notice my thoughts are not in a good place. I'll set out some time for myself so that I can observe my thoughts. And I see that my thoughts are trying to tell me that I'm not good enough, that I'm a failure and a terrible person. I recognize that these are the underlying beliefs behind my thoughts. I would then try to see if I can pinpoint where these thoughts came from. After reflecting, I realized that these thoughts come from my past where I've repeatedly felt like a failure and a burden in my own family. I may even realize that these thoughts have been a repeated theme in my life and has kept me from pursuing that which I desire due to the negative beliefs I have about myself. Now, at this point, I have decided that this is enough reflection on this particular subject. So now I'm going to think about what I want those thoughts to be instead. I would probably want to feel capable, valued, and loved. So now that I have come up with new thoughts, I'm going to replace my old repetitive thoughts with my new desired repetitive thoughts. And anytime those old thoughts would come up, I would immediately reject them and replace them with the new thoughts. So this would kind of look like this. So my thoughts would start saying, I will never be good enough. Actually, I am more than enough. I value myself and I am valued by others. No matter when the old thought comes up for you, you have to practice reinforcing those new thoughts no matter how you feel, no matter how many times you have switched your thoughts around or how much you can't stand to do it. It is the dominant thoughts that become our beliefs. And in order to replace our old thoughts and beliefs and mindsets that we have probably had for a good part of our lives, we must enforce new ones until it becomes a natural part of us. Now, you will know if these new thoughts have hardened into new beliefs because it'll become easier for these new beliefs to show up in your thoughts. And depending on what the belief is, it can manifest into the physical for you, which such as maybe you change your thoughts to viewing yourself as a person of value. And then you may notice that others start treating you better, complimenting on the things that you do, assisting you more without asking. I mean, there are literally so many ways that shifting your thoughts can manifest for you. The point is you want to keep at it until the desired changes happen that you want. So, let us talk about the fun part on how the mind works. There are 4 key understandings I will discuss when it comes to the mind. First comes from a philosophical standpoint, which we're going to pull from the Kabbalion. The Kabbalion are the 7 universal principles that dictate our world, experience, and our nature. It is key to understand the terms universal and principle. Universal means relating to or affecting the entire universe, and principle means foundation or first important. So the Kabbalion consists of the foundations that affect the collective as a whole. And the first principle mentioned in the Kabbalion is the principle of mentalism, which states that the all is mind. The universe is mental. It also explains that all phenomenal world or universe is simply a mental creation of the all, or the creator, subject to laws of created things, and that the universe as a whole and in its parts and units has its existence in the mind of the all, in which we live, move, and have our being in. Simply put, everything starts and stems from the mind. And this means all phenomena, ideas, physical matters, and experience must start within the mind. And this is why it's important to have a healthy mental diet, for the mind co-creates what it takes in. The next key to understanding the functions of the mind is that the mind is both physical and spiritual in nature. This means that our mind, the mental aspect of ourselves, exists both in the physical realm, that which we see, in the invisible realm that we don't see but is always around us. I believe this is key to helping us understand the link between our 2 realms of existence, the spiritual and the physical. By tapping into both aspects of our mind, we can gain a greater understanding of ourselves and our existence here, and how we can bring things from the mental side to the physical realm. To further help us out, we're going to discuss three aspects of the mind. Now, there are many aspects that make up the mental self, but we're only going to discuss the conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious minds and their functionings. The conscious mind is our thoughts, the memories that are brought up to our awareness. The conscious mind is responsible for our thinking, processing, and rationaling. So, the conscious mind is our thoughts, the memories that are brought up to our awareness. The conscious mind is responsible for our thinking, processing, and rationaling. I think that's it, rationaling. The conscious mind also acts like the gatekeeper to our subconscious mind. The conscious mind will reject any thoughts it does not agree with or has been programmed to reject. Our conscious mind is what we are most aware of. The subconscious mind is the part of the mind that contains our memories, generates our thoughts and emotions, stores our habits, and controls our sensory input. It also helps the body function with our need to do it consciously, like breathing and pumping blood. The subconscious mind is basically like a recorder. It records information gathered through our senses, producing thoughts, emotions, and providing programs for autopilot behaviors and habits, and co-produces our physical experience. The subconscious mind is always on and always recording. This is why we must become mindful of what is in our environment. What are we consuming, and what programs are running or are we allowing in? Our subconscious mind is an unaware aspect of self, but can be brought up to awareness, unlike the unconscious mind, which is the part of our mind that we are mostly unaware of. It controls our primitive instincts and ingrained habits that are outside of our awareness. I mean, this can look like humans' natural fear of the dark that comes from our early ancestors, which we wouldn't normally have a reference to or a memory of. Altogether, these aspects of our mind control majority of our experiences. Now, the last key to understanding the mind is that the mind is programmed and reprogrammable. From the age birth to 7, the child is in what they call their primitive years. This is when the brain and the neural development develops the fastest. The child is most impressionable at this stage. Children's brains are like tape recorders with no off switch. Now, once the child is about 7, they become more active in their brain activity and can start to process and reason a bit more. But in the background of their behaviors, thoughts, beliefs, and actions is what they observed and experienced in those first 7 years. And these become belief and affect the development and wellness and the success in the child's life. Now, the program doesn't stop at 7. In fact, the subconscious mind is always recording. But if we aren't aware of our subconscious mind, we can allow faulty, bad, and outdated programs to become rooted within us, which then can produce unwanted experiences. Luckily for us, just because our subconscious mind is always recording, we can use our conscious mind to influence what our conscious mind takes in and what is replaced, which can be done by being mindful and aware of our thoughts, changing our thoughts and habits by reinstating new thoughts and new ways of being to override the old programs and beliefs. Now, when we grasp these 4 keys and learn to properly utilize them in our lives, we will improve our mental self-care, improve our mental self, and we will have the ability to transform ourselves and our experience in ways we desire and can't even imagine. This truth is not just my word or opinion. This truth is in philosophy, spiritual wisdom. It's contained in different sciences such as quantum physics, epigenetics, and the science of natural law. And the great thing about it is we all have this innate ability and power within us. But most likely you, like the most of us, weren't taught how to access it. And most of us aren't even aware of the hidden potential within ourselves. Instead, we were given programs of beliefs along the line that told us that we were powerless, victims to our circumstances. We were taught to be dependent on others to save us. And worse, we were taught to play it small and shut down any notions that we ourselves are the force and source of ourselves, our thoughts, emotions, and our experiences, as well as the experiences of the collective. But that time has changed because we are no longer allowing ourselves to stay in a space of ignorance. A poor mental health is being ignorant to the power of your mind, spirit, and will. Now, let us talk about what we should reconsider and possibly avoid when it comes to maintaining a healthy mental self and mind. The first that I would like to talk about is a closed mind and fear, which are two natural enemies to a healthy mind. A closed mind shuts off all new information and ability to expand and grow because it works hand in hand with its partner, fear. Fear keeps us in a sympathetic nervous response, meaning that we're either in fight, flight, or frozen state. In this state, we cannot think clearly, we cannot process, we do not have logic and reasoning abilities, and we can become hypervigilant. Fear is the enemy to growth. Fear is what will keep the mind closed and ignorant to new information and ways of being. With fear in a closed mind, you stunt your own personal growth and maturity. By keeping fear and a closed mind around, we close ourselves off to experience a life from a new and fresh perspective. And it is my personal opinion, based on my own studies and beliefs, that the mind strives to grow and expand and express itself in its highest capacity. But this can only be done when we have the courage to expand beyond our fears by showing up and facing that which triggers us and learn to see what causes us fear. This will expand our ways of viewing life itself and help us open our minds up more, and an open mind is essential for a healthy mind. But why is it that people have such a challenge around fear and expanding our awareness? I have personally seen in my life countless of individuals who say they have an open mind and immediately become closed off when presented with anything that goes against the norm of their thoughts and beliefs. But why is that? Do you consider yourself to be open-minded? So here's some questions to ask yourself and try your best to be honest with your answers. So, questions to ask yourself from time to time. How often do I live in a state of fear? Am I as open as I would like to believe? When others bring up topics that I disagree with, what is my reaction physically, mentally, and emotionally? Am I able to look up controversial information without ultimately rejecting it? And how open and willing am I to changing my mind when presented with new information? The next thing I would like to recommend is you ask those who are closest to you and that you trust, and ask them how they see you in the above statement. Are you surprised what you discover? Do their observations line up with your personal answers? This is just a good way to get a bigger perspective of the whole picture, because sometimes our ego and our mindsets can, cloud our judgment and our perception. Now, trust me, if there is anyone who is guilty of being closed-minded and led by fear, it would be me. I gave you guys the example in the previous video on nurturing the physical body and how I went from plant-based to incorporating more meat into my diet. And at first, I was very resistant to it. I refused to see any other point of view, but I've always made sure I allowed myself to see different perspectives and to allow myself the flexibility to change my mind when needed. And what makes this so challenging for all of us, it's fear. And this can be fear of what you'll uncover by looking at yourself, fear of what others will think, fear of the unknown, and just about any type of fear you can come up. The reason, as stated before, is that fear shuts down our neocortex, which is responsible for clear thinking, reasoning, and logic. When we give into our fears, our perceptions become muddy and our actions become unreliable. The best way to overcome fear is to face it with courage, honesty, and reminding ourselves of where our power actually lies, which is always within us first. So, to overcome a closed mind, you must identify the areas you feel resistant in. Observe your reactions, your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. Allow yourself to see from different perspectives and look into other people's perspectives. Allow yourself to contemplate your old ways of thinking and beliefs. Then make the change if you see fit. The next thing I would like to discuss and things to reconsider and possibly avoid in order to keep a healthy mind is sodium fluoride, which is found in most toothpaste. Now, I know there are going to be a lot of people who are going to try to push back and tell me that fluoride is needed in order to keep our teeth strong and protect against cavities, which there's a possibility that this is true. But there's also a lot of evidence and active cases going on that supports the notion of the negative effects of sodium fluoride on the body and on the brain. Fluoride is a neurotoxin and has some serious effects such as promotes docile behavior, calcifies the pineal gland, lowers IQ in children, as well as promotes other health problems. Fluoride Action Network have been bringing awareness to the dangers of fluoride and have pursuing an open case against fluoride for many years. You can find their work at fluoridealert.org. I highly recommend you check them out and all the work that they have been doing. I will leave a link in the description for you to start your own research. But when it comes to mental self care, the last thing we want to introduce to our brain is a neurotoxin like fluoride. Next, we're going to talk about another controversial topic when it comes to what we should reconsider and possibly avoid for a healthy mind. And that is SRNI and SSRI drugs. Again, I'm not a doctor or a licensed professional. My only intent here is to bring some information to you that you might not be aware of, just so that you can at least have this brought to your attention so you can do your own research. Only you know what's best for you and your situation. But for me, it's important to bring awareness to what these medications can do. Now, SSRIs or SRNIs are medications that are usually given to those who are diagnosed with some type of mental health issues. These medications include names like Prozac, Zoloft, Zymbalta, and more. And even though in short-term uses, these drugs may be beneficial to the individuals, these SRNIs and SSRI drugs can have harmful effects and be very dangerous and can be very damaging to the brain and its natural functions. Other issues with these prescription medications are that they can cause numbness and apathy, which isn't natural as we are meant to feel and process our emotions. Apathy makes it easier to slide into dangerous waters when it comes to depression and other psychological conditions. These drugs can also cause serotonin syndrome that can range from mild symptoms like nervousness and vomiting to more severe symptoms such as tremors, confusion, seizures, and even death. Chances of suicide and mental health issues increase while on these drugs. Now, I'm not saying at all don't take them, especially if you feel that they help you. All I am saying, it is always best to be conscious and aware of what you are putting into your body and its potential effects as a conscious consumer. Now, if you have experienced negative side effects when it comes to these medications and you've decided you wanted to get off of them, you must do it properly. Again, you must do it properly or else it can have very negative and harmful effects. Quitting these drugs can be just as harmful, if not more harmful, than being on them if not done in the proper steps and the guidance of a professional. So, I highly recommend looking into Dr. Peter Breggin's work. He is a psychiatrist who has been in the field longer than I have been alive, and he advocates for a heart-led approach when it comes to mental health, and has successfully helped others off meds and helped them improve their lives without the interference of psych drugs. You can find his work at psych-breggin.com. He has written numerous books on the toxic practices that are being done in the psych field, the downfalls of psych drugs, and how to safely withdraw from being dependent on these drugs. There are also many other great doctors that discuss these drugs and their potential effects from what they observed in their own practice. I recommend looking into Dr. Anthony Kaveh, Kaveh, as well, which I will try to remember to put all the links in the description as well. But before we move on, I want to remind you to do your own research when it comes to this topic. Do your best to be open to all resources as you gather your own conclusion about what is best for you and your mind. And now, for the last thing I'd like to discuss when it comes to things we may want to reconsider and avoid in order to keep a healthy mind, is what we consume through TV, media, and our music. As I mentioned earlier, the subconscious mind is always active. What I didn't mention is that the subconscious mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not. It takes everything literally and as fact. Our brains react to whatever we are watching and listening to. So if we are watching, let's say, a scary movie and something scary happens, even if we are consciously aware that this is a movie, our brain and body will respond to the events as if it were really happening to us. So when we are consuming excess amount of TV, social media, and mainstream music, we have to take in account what we're allowing into our minds and what is getting implanted in our minds, beliefs, and our behaviors. This doesn't mean we have to completely remove these out of our lives, just that we need to become more mindful of what we are consuming and the messages that are being portrayed and projected in what we hear and see, as well as how much we are consuming. Have you ever wondered why it's called television programming? If you are unaware of the mental programming that is presented in our everyday lives, I recommend looking more into this topic. It is a vast topic, and you can find a few people who are speaking about this. An example is Mark Devlin, who does a lot of work in exposing the music industry. There are also numerous individuals and doctors who are speaking about the negative effects of television and social media. I mean, the media and music industry is a multi-billion-dollar business each, and a lot goes into the production of what we consume. Unfortunately, not everyone in these positions and companies have our best interests in mind, which is why it's vital to look into these subjects a little bit more if we're looking to maintain a healthy mental health in mind. I would also recommend that if you're looking to improve your mental self and mind, you should stop watching the news in any form. Mark Passio has done an amazing job when it comes to breaking down the methods that are used for influencing our mind. So if you haven't checked him out already, I highly recommend that you look into his work. His website is whatsonearthishappening.com. He has a wealth of information that is unmatched. Now, the final topic I would like to talk about before we end our time together is some additional ways we can support our mental selves. I recommend omega-3s, which we talked about in the last video on nurturing the physical body. Omega-3s have a profound effect on our brain health. Omega-3 supports our cognitive functions, the brain structure, reduces risk of age-related cognitive decline. Omega-3s also shows the potential in improving our memories, brain functions, and depression. I also recommend lion's mane. Studies have found that lion's mane can stimulate the growth of brain cells and protect against Alzheimer's and reduce memory loss. Lion's mane can also promote nerve growth and relieve symptoms of depression and anxiety. As stated in the previous video as well, physical activity, exercising can improve our learning abilities, improve and sustain our brain health. Physical activities can also lead to improved memory, concentration, sharpen our problem solving skills, help prevent dementia, increase the blood flow to our brains, and enhance neuroplasticity. Lastly, I recommend decreasing overstimulation. Overstimulation can wreck our neurons and destroy brain cells. When overstimulated, the brain responds as if it were in danger and enters into fight or flight or freeze mode. When we are overstimulated, we cannot think or process clearly. Now, there are many ways to deal with overstimulation, such as removing oneself from whatever is overstimulating us, cutting back on screen time, definitely around bedtime, as well as going outside and putting our bare feet onto the grass, and taking a few conscious deep breaths. Our mind and the mental aspect of ourselves is very important, just like the physical, emotional, and spiritual aspect of self. And in order for us to operate and function at an optimal level, we must take the right steps in order to support these aspects of ourselves. So, with that being said, I would like to leave you with this. Even if you don't quite understand yet, it is our minds, our thoughts, and beliefs that co-create our experiences. And if we want to see any change in any aspects of our life, we must first do the work within our mind first. So, let me know in the comment, what are you going to incorporate in your mental self-care in order to support your mental mind and self? I hope you all enjoyed the nurturing self-care video. I will see you for the next video, which is all about nurturing our emotions. Make sure you like this video if you have found value in it, and share it if you know anyone else could benefit from these series. And subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video. Until next time, everyone, please take care, and I will see you guys again.